camera does all that work. It's amazing.
I can't wait to see the view that we get. Now, none of this shit is in your way, correct?
No, none of it's in the shot.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're live, so.
I'm live right now?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
You said to put it live.
We're raw. Are we really live?
Yeah, really. Check it out on the phone.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We're live. Okay, so can I talk to the audience?
Yes.
Okay.
We're live.
We're live. Can you see it?
Tara Marie live. And
Okay, guys, Chad, we're seriously live. Okay, so we're live. So
You are seriously live.
Okay, so I was caught off guard. Okay, so guys, hi, it's Tara Marie. I'm coming to you from Hanger Studios. Chad, are our levels good?
We're getting
okay,
yeah.
so why don't we do that? Okay.
We were a little peeked out in the beginning.
Okay, so guys, we're coming to you from the Hanger Studios. This is Dr. Jonathan Aviv.
hello, everybody.
He's a friend of mine. I consider him a friend and a colleague, although he's a surgeon and I'm a trainer. So we're colleagues.
It all works. It's all about wellness.
Yeah, but we're talking today about his book, The Acid Watcher Diet. And for the first time ever, obviously for the first time, what we're doing is we're streaming the pre-record of the podcast on Facebook Live. So we've never done this before, so there are going to be a bunch of mistakes. So we're in the studio. You just heard Chad's voice, right, Chaddy?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. And let's keep these on while we interface with Chad. And then, okay. So sound check, testing 1, 2, 3. Chad, you just sound a little dim.
Yeah, I'm going to bring myself
that
up.
sounds
Here
better.
I am. Yeah,
There we
great.
go.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so you should both hear me. Doctor, can I hear you?
I hear you loud and clear.
And your levels look good on the recording. Tara, how are you?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Welcome to Tara Marie Live. We're
Okay.
here at the beautiful Hanger Studios. Doctor, where are your note? You didn't bring them?
I have it all here.
Oh, but you got the ones that
Oh yes,
I sent to you.
I
and
did
you
a
read
lot of
them.
homework.
Okay, and you saw
Hey,
it.
I'm watching us live. Look at that.
Where? Oh, okay.
Well, I'm watching us on your Facebook feed. I'm watching. This is very meta right now, but I'm watching you
let
in
me
like
see
that.
that.
Oh,
places.
cool. Okay, and guys, the person who you're hearing is Chad.
Hello.
Chad and his business partner own and operate Hanger Studios right here in New York City. Okay, so you don't have your things. You don't need them. No necesitas.
No, we're all good here. Oh, I see it. This is wild. Check this out.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That
Okay.
is something else.
Okay, so so we know what we're gonna do, and we obviously, I think that they're not anticipating polished,
Yeah.
right? So we'll just go with that.
We'll feed off the live.
We'll go with that. Chad, is everything okay with the?
Yeah, I'm just locking your one shot. Your shot looks locked in. I'm locking in the doctor's shot.
Okay.
And that will click over in a little bit. And I like the doctor shot locked in. And there's our wide shot. All right, so on my end, we're all good for Tara Marie Live episode number 7.
Okay. You ready? Should we start now?
Yeah.
Okay, and no music's gonna play or anything, right?
Yeah, no, we'll
Nothing.
do that in post.
Okay. Okay. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Well, hello and welcome to Tara Marie Live. Thank you so very much for tuning in. If you're a regular listener, I appreciate your loyalty to the show. And if you're a new listener, welcome and thank you for joining me. I am your host, Tara Marie Segundo, and I'm a fitness expert, a personal trainer, and a motivational strategist coming to you from the Hanger Studios right here in beautiful New York City. Now, today we're actually broadcasting this show on Facebook Live while we pre-record the podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast and you missed the live stream on Facebook, you can catch the video of the show on my Facebook page, which is Tara Marie Live, or on my YouTube channel, Tara Marie Live, aptly named. So you can go back and watch it there. Now, my show, Tara Marie Live, is about mental, emotional, physical, social, and spiritual health. And I've worked with clients as a personal fitness trainer and consultant for over 33 years. Now, when I was just starting out, right after I went to graduate school here in New York City at Columbia, when I was just starting out, long before I came here to go to grad school, I believed that the path to health was by way of physical fitness and nutrition. The caveat is I didn't recognize how these other pivotal parts of who we are have to be nurtured and developed in order to have optimal health and optimal happiness. Because as I've said before, and I'll say it again, health is not merely the absence of disease. Health is when your body's working well, when you feel vibrant, you have good energy, you sleep well, your body's not riddled with aches and pains, and you're actually excited to be alive. That's the goal. You can't have a healthy body and a sick soul. And you can't have a healthy soul and ignore the health of your body. Everything is inextricably linked. So today we're talking about actually a disease that has been steadily on the rise for the last few decades. I'm talking about acid reflux disease, which can ultimately lead to esophageal cancer, which is, I didn't know this, the fastest growing cancer in both America and Europe. And that's a scary thought. Most people associate acid reflux with heartburn and indigestion, plop, plop, fizz, fizz, right, Chad? Yeah.
Yeah,
Plop, plop.
absolutely.
Right, plop, plop, fizz, fizz. But some of the most common symptoms are hoarseness, abdominal bloating, a nagging cough, a consistent sore throat, a postnasal drip, the feeling of a lump in the back of your throat, even allergies and shortness of breath. So I did not realize all that until I read this book. This is why acid reflux disease so often goes undiagnosed. And see, that's the scary part. At least 60 million Americans have acid reflux disease, many of whom don't realize it. And that's where things get dangerous. This is how this silent killer progresses into cancer, esophageal cancer, that is, right under our noses. So you've got to ask yourself, because I always say to myself, why? Why is this happening? And more so, why is this happening now? Another question is, why have obesity and acid reflux disease risen in tandem? Right, doctor? They've risen in tandem. Here's a question. Chad, think about this. Yeah. Could it be possible that eating a bunch of denatured processed crap could do us harm?
I would think so based on everything I've ever watched, yeah.
Might it actually be true, Chad, that living on soda, coffee, fast food, and cigarettes could negatively affect our health? Could that be?
If I'm to believe the doctors, yes.
I mean, it's like it's a world gone mad. At some point, we have to look at ourselves and ask, what are we doing to contribute to increased disease and death rates from conditions that have reached epidemic proportions? We have to admit that we're part of the problem before we can be part of the solution.
That's right.
Yes. So thankfully, help has arrived, and here he is. This is my guest, my friend, Dr. Jonathan Aviv. Dr. Aviv is a world-renowned physician, surgeon, educator, and author. He's the clinical director and founder of the Voice and Swallowing Center of ENT and Allergy Associates. He's also a clinical professor of otolaryngology at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai here in New York City. Now, he's written a revolutionary new book that will change how you look at acid reflux disease forever, period. Because it gives you the power to heal yourself. That's what this show is about. It's about recognizing your patterns in your own life and healing yourself, because ultimately the power resides with you. It's called the Acid Watcher Diet, a 28-day reflux prevention and healing program. So welcome, Dr. Jonathan Aviv.
Thank you, Tara Marie, for that incredible introduction and for allowing this forum for knowledge and progress to take place.
I love this book.
Thank you.
Now, I emailed you, what was it, about 2:30 in the morning? No, when was it? It was like 2:30 in the morning?
It's usually a pre-dawn event. Yes.
Okay, and Chad, when do I usually email you?
About 3 a.m.
Okay. All right. So I have some issues with, I work a lot, but I read every word of this book.
Thank you.
Okay. So I read every word. Look at my copy. My copy's like, we couldn't use my copy for the demo because my copy, like, it has stains all over it.
I love when people come in into the office and the book is a little chewed up and has food stains on it,
right,
etc.
But
I love that.
I really read it. You know, a lot of hosts don't read the books. Did you know that?
I trust that you will read it and have a lot of questions and inform our listening audience.
I read this book cover to cover, and this is quite a book. And again, I'm going to say it. First of all, it was very kind of disturbing to me when I read it because, as I've told you privately, I have two relatives, one of whom she has been diagnosed with GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and her son has these weird nagging issues. Remember I told you about my cousin, my aunt's son has these weird nagging issues, and he's been to the Mayo Clinic and back. I mean, it's not like he went to his primary care doctor and called it a day. Okay, he has been to the Mayo Clinic and back. What scares me are the silent diseases, the things we don't know are happening. These are the things that scare me, not the things that are obvious, not the aches and pains that can be traced to a real issue. So what I liked about this disease, and the reason I'm adamant about doing this show, and the reason I picked this show to air on Facebook Live as my first show was on Facebook Live, was because this to me is really, when I say groundbreaking, I'm not just using that the way publicists use it. You know, I mean, it's really, it's a way that people can look at their lives, not just food, but look at their lives and heal themselves. Would you agree with that?
That's our goal.
Yeah. And now I want to say, Chad, we're in the presence of greatness.
I know.
But no, he's modest. He's modest. Okay, check this out. Because I read his bio. He's appeared on Good Morning America, The Dr. Oz Show, NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, CNN, Inside Edition, Good Day New York, The Better Show, Bloomberg Television, The Discovery Channel, and Tara Marie Live. Chad, your publicist must be thrilled. What did your publicist say? What did she say when you said, now I know I've done Dr. Oz, but I'm going to do Tara Marie Live?
She said she's been trying to get a bunch of authors on the show.
Oh, Chad, do you believe that?
I don't know.
Dr. Oz, Tara Marie Live. This is a crash and burn situation here for Dr. Aviv's career, but we are thrilled to have you. And I know that Chad here at Hanger Studios, we're all thrilled to have you. And I want to express, I need to tell people, Chad, I've told you that Dr. Aviv is my neighbor.
That's right.
And if it seems like I'm a little cozy with you, it's not because I'm a horrible flirt. It's because I love this man. He's actually my upstairs neighbor. And
generally very quiet.
Oh, very quiet. He's my upstairs neighbor. And Chad, I wanted to tell you how we met. Because Chad always wonders how I get the guests that I do. Because I get some really good guests, right, Chad? Yeah?
Yeah, some amazing guests.
I get some amazing guests. How do I meet them? Because I'm a gutsy gal. Okay? Would you agree that I'm a gutsy gal?
Forward is perfect.
Okay. So Chad, this is what happened. I moved into my current condo in April of 2012. That you need to know to understand this story. You also need to understand that I have a secret crush on Dr. Mehmet Oz. Have I told you that? I told you that once, right?
I think so.
Okay, so I have a crush on Dr. Oz. So every day I DVR Dr. Oz. Now, let's go back to 2012. No, let's go back to 2012 and onward. Fast forward, we're going to go from 2012 to like the spring of 2014.
Okay.
One day, Chad, I'm standing in my lobby, just chewing the crap with some of the lobby, the concierge guys and the doormen. In walks Dr. Jonathan Aviv. Now, I had just recently seen you. When this all occurred, the reason this was significant is because I had just seen you on Dr. Oz.
Right.
And I remember seeing you on Dr. Oz. You were, apropos, you were talking about acid reflux disease. This book had not come out. You were just the groundwork was being laid. And I said to myself when I saw him, I said, I like that guy. Because I liked you because, you know, you're an MD, you're a medical doctor, but you're very forward thinking. I liked what you had to say. I liked the way your answer for everything isn't plop, plop, fizz, fizz, Nexium. You know, I shouldn't mention, you get the drift. I liked the way you expect your patients to partner with you. You expect it because your medical model is, I'm not here to fix you. You're here to help me fix you. You, the patient, need to help me fix you.
We try and engage people.
Right. So that's what I liked about him. And I liked his hair. Chad, did you, I mean, thick head of hair. Nice. Chad, can we say that you're bald, Chad? Can we say that
I'm proudly bald.
Okay, so Chad's bald. So I'm just saying, Chad, you got to admire the dude's locks.
Always, yes.
Okay. So I thought, I like him. I like what he has to say. And I like his hair. And I thought, well, that's enough for me. I thought, I love this guy. Couple weeks later, I mean, it was tight period of time. I'm standing in the lobby chewing the fat with some of our guys, and you walk in, and all the blood like rushed out of my head. Like, you know how you get, like, I didn't know what to do because there are a lot of people in our building, and you don't see them. You know, in our building, which is 27 stories, like you don't know who lives in your building.
Right.
But you walked in, and I thought, oh, who's he here to see? And the way you were walking in, I think they handed you your dry cleaning. I realized, oh, he lives here. This is where the story gets good. I think I blurted something out to you. I thought, should I lay back and be like, what's the word? Should I lay back and be kind of coy, or should I jump in? Chad, what do you think I did?
You jumped in.
Okay, so that's what I did. So I thought, my original thought was, I'm just going to say something. So I think I said to you, I think I said to you, oh, I recently saw you on Dr. Oz. Do you remember this conversation at all?
Yes. No, of course I remember. You're unforgettable.
Yeah.
And here I am walking in oblivious to what's going on.
It was the end
in
of the
my
day.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was probably later at night.
Right.
And it's actually very unusual for anyone to approach anyone in that situation.
In that building, yeah.
So, of course I remember. Of course I noticed.
So I said, oh, you were on Dr. Oz. And he, a lot of people who are known aren't the nicest of sorts. You were very friendly and engaging. Now, at the time, Chad, I had a show on internet radio. This was before I was on Sirius XM, because my show on Sirius XM started October of 2014. This was about 2 years after I moved in. This was April, May 2014. So I was on internet radio at the time, and I thought, God, I wish I could interview him, but he's not. I mean, I just saw him on Dr. Oz. Why would he want to? Why? I mean, do you know what I mean, Chad? Like, I mean, I thought, why would he want to? But I thought, my mother always taught me, if you don't ask, you're never going to know the answer, right? So this is where my wheels started spinning. Chad, I started thinking to myself, okay, Tara, you've lived in this building 2 years. You've never seen this man, ever. You may part ways and never see him again for another 2 years. So I thought, you've got to do something now. Like, you've got to do something now. So I thought, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? So my first instinct was to lure you into a small enclosed space where you couldn't get away. Chad, seriously.
I believe it. Oh, I know who you are.
Right, that's not bad. So I said to myself, lure the man into a small area where you've got him almost cornered, right? So I thought, I'm going to follow him into the elevator, because you checked your mail and then we went to I went and I got in the elevator with you. Now, there are cameras on the elevator, Chad. So I had to watch what I was going to, there are cameras watching us. So of course I'm not going to do anything crazy. But I think I said to you, I pushed my number, and I saw you push a number ahead, on a higher floor than mine. And I said to myself, okay, because I calculated, I know about how much time it takes to get to my floor. So in my head, I thought, okay, you have that much time to pitch to this guy. So I pitched to you, and you very graciously said yes. And I think what ended up happening was, by the time I had you on, I made the transition to Sirius XM. That's what happened. Yeah, because this was like
American Latino Radio.
Yeah, this was May-ish. And again, proceedings for Sirius XM started, the legal everything started by July. So by June, I was already out of the situation that I was in. So I said to you, hang on, I'll be on Sirius XM shortly. And that was how I met you. What do you think of that story, Chad?
I like it.
It's
a mute cute. What's that? Cute meat cute.
Okay, so what is mute cute meat?
It's like a movie term where like two people meet each other in a cute way.
Oh.
It was just, and the truth is I don't see you that much in the lobby.
That's
so
right.
I was like so glad because now, I think when I was on Sirius XM, I think I interviewed you 4 times.
That's right. There's plenty. Well, there was a lot going on in the space during that time.
Right, because you had a first book that came out, then Joan Rivers, God rest her soul, passed of a disease, and we're going to get into that. Then another thing came out in the news about something, a medical device you invented, the TNE,
Right.
and then something went down with President Obama. So boom, boom, boom. In the period of like a year and a half, I interviewed you 4 times. So we had this great relationship now.
Right.
Yeah.
And the response that you got when I was being interviewed by you on American Latino Radio. So people would call in from all over.
Yes.
So
that was a call-in show. Yeah, that was.
It touched upon a lot of people's concerns, and you picked up on that and educated a lot of people way back then.
Yes. Now, Chad, we said we were going to take off our headsets. I want to leave them on, though, because you may have something to pitch in about this. Let's leave on our headsets.
Yeah, no, just by the title alone, before we warmed up, the doctor and I were talking. I suffer from reflux.
Oh shit.
So this is right up my alley. So I'm going to be listening intently the whole time.
Let's leave our headset. Let's leave our headsets on.
Of course.
So I just wanted to come clean. I love this man. I love you dearly. I love you.
Thank you.
Madly, hopelessly, madly, and dearly. And it's always a huge pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Tamara.
And as I emailed you this afternoon, I have another idea. After we talk about it privately, maybe I'll mention it on social media. Another thing we're going to do together.
Excellent.
That, yeah, for Facebook Live. I thought you might enjoy it. And I think it's not only going to be, I think it's going to be informative. And I think this is what people need to hear. Okay. Because here's the truth of the matter. We're in New York City. Okay. If you're going to have a medical issue, Chad, I always say this. If you're going to have a medical issue, for God's sakes, have it in New York City.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, people come to New York City from all over the planet.
Best doctors in the country, in my belief.
Am I right, doctor, or am I making it up?
Well,
I mean,
it's become a global place, right? People will also go to the Cleveland Clinic. People will also go to the Mayo Clinic. People will definitely come to New York. They have several hospitals and medical centers that can treat very complex things. And we have the ability in our practice at ENT and Allergy Associates to, especially when it comes to throat-related or even ear-related, sinus-related disease, to get to either do the workup ourselves or get people to what we call a tertiary place, which takes care of particularly difficult problems.
Move this closer to
So I would say yes.
Yeah, and I just feel like, well, and we're going to talk about this over the course of the interview. I said that, you're a physician, a surgeon, an educator, an inventor. You invented one of the reasons, Chad, this is what's cool. One of the things that I think gives street cred to this book is that you're the inventor of a medical device that a lot of people have probably benefited from worldwide, called the TNE, the transnasal
endoscopy or esophagoscopy.
Okay, the TNE, the transnasal esophagoscopy.
Right.
And, God rest her soul. I wish Joan Rivers had come to you. That's all I'm saying. Right? I mean,
Well, anytime there are issues with any procedure, it's a very complicated story. I think the important thing for people to realize, for your listeners to realize, is that you don't have to be sedated to have a look at your esophagus, the esophagus being the tube that connects the throat to the stomach.
Yes.
And as long as people are aware that there are choices, we've made progress.
Right. And you're the inventor of the choice, and I just want to give you credit for that.
Thank you. As it turns out, the person that developed a way to go through the nose to actually look all the way down to the top of the small intestine was there were a few people involved. Our contribution was the TNE, meaning to go just through the nose into the esophagus. Before that, people were going further into the stomach, into the small intestine. The shorter version, where you go through the nose looking at the esophagus and the top of the stomach, is what I pioneered.
Okay, got it. What year did you do that?
This was started in 1996. And
oh my God, that was so you that okay that's okay so it's been a while.
Long time ago, yeah, and we've been doing this for a while, and despite writing a textbook about it with Dr. Peter Belafsky and Greg Postma, and presenting at numerous meetings, writing papers, no one reads that stuff.
Right.
And it took a cultural icon.
Because that's why, can I tell you something?
Yes.
That's why I thought it was more recent, because I'd never heard of it until we started talking about when poor Joan River, the poor woman, I mean, God bless her. She went in one morning for a little thing, and she was supposed to just come out, I
mean, the amazing thing is transnasal esophagoscopy was written about in the New York Times by Jane Brody in 2008.
Okay.
And then in spring of 2009, I was on Good Morning America doing a T&E on a patient of mine who had esophageal precancer. We did it live on the show with Diane Sawyer interviewing me.
Okay.
And then we did it at the White House.
What president?
During the Obama administration,
Okay.
Ronnie Jackson, the physician to the president, invited me to do a demonstration for him in the White House. And I brought a patient who had esophageal precancer,
To show
how straightforward this is.
Okay.
And that you could do this procedure quickly and safely without sedation. And
Good.
there are a lot of implications to that, which we can talk about, economic implications to doing it without sedation. It's much less expensive for our healthcare system. It's much safer for patients. It's not that everyone should have it. It's just that patients should be aware that there are options. And a lot of people aren't aware that there are options. And maybe through the work you're doing, through raising awareness about the acid watcher diet, people will understand that if they have to have their esophagus and stomach looked at, you don't necessarily have to be knocked out.
May I ask you a question? Chad, is the air conditioning on? I'm a little hot in here. Are you hot, dog?
The air conditioning is on, but it's stopped up right now.
So should we leave it stopped up?
I can open it up. It's just gonna need me to come in there.
Why don't we wait? So are you hot, dog?
I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Nothing like a raw take. We didn't rehearse. Chad, you think they can tell we didn't rehearse? I think
it might be evident, but that's all right.
Yeah. No,
we're human. We are human.
I think people are smart. I think obviously this is not a rehearsed event.
I think people like to see how the sausage is made, so it's all right.
Oh dear. Okay, doctor, let me ask you this. This isn't even on my notes.
Good.
My relative, who shall remain nameless, I don't know that her doctors in Tampa have the TNE.
It's actually available all over the world. Many companies make it. There are different renditions of it.
Okay.
And it's very fluid.
But it's widely used. So
it's used all over the world.
Okay.
And especially if you think about it in third world countries where they don't have access to all the anesthesia.
Okay.
And intravenous sedation and monitoring. That's a big thing, how you monitor someone when they're sedated.
Okay.
It's a very, very good option. I could tell you a fabulous story. I was giving a talk in Cape Town and Johannesburg.
Okay.
And they brought in a patient who had a mass right above their vocal cord. Had been previously.
Could you see it out from the outside?
No, it's only from the inside. But she had a very breathy voice because her vocal cords weren't working very well.
Okay.
And there was a big mass there. And the plan typically in a situation like that is take the patient to the operating room.
Oh, God.
You'd have to do a trach. That means a temporary cut in the neck to put in an airway here.
Okay.
Then do biopsies, which cause a lot of swelling. That's why they do the trach ahead of time. And then look at the esophagus. So the whole thing requires
that's a surgery.
Several procedures and probably a week to 2 weeks in the hospital. They brought the patient in front of the audience of, I think, about half of all ENT doctors in South Africa were there.
You were at a conference then, obviously, yeah.
Yes, and I did, using the transnasal esophagoscopy instrument, I was able to biopsy the lesion with the patient awake. I just dropped a little numbing medicine on, went down to look at the esophagus, and everything was okay. Took the camera out. The whole thing took about 10, 15 minutes, and she walked out. That was it. No trach, no 2 weeks in the hospital. And people fell off their chairs because they hadn't seen that before.
Way out there, yeah.
But it could be duplicated all over the world. This was an extreme situation where in a country that hadn't yet been exposed to this.
What year was this, doctor?
This was 2007, perhaps.
Okay, fair enough. So, okay.
But it was fascinating because I actually got to meet Mr. Mandela on that trip.
Oh.
Because he was very interested in procedures that would
help his people.
That would help, that didn't require expensive medication, expensive and very sophisticated monitoring.
It's not even that. Look at the quality of life. Look at the difference. The woman, like you said, 10, 15 minutes of her life. Walk in, walk out.
Versus 2 weeks in the
and
hospital.
And a trach.
Right,
I mean,
right.
look, I mean, quality of, look at.
Everything.
Yeah.
Every way you look at it. The thing is, we are often battling many different needs and established ways to do things.
Okay.
And anytime you try and do change in medicine, it's difficult.
Well, I think there's probably a lag time and there's probably a pushback, even from people in your community. There's probably a pushback. Do you know what I mean? Like, people are stuck in their ways. But again, I have an idea that I'll talk to you about off camera. I think you're going to like it because the reason I do this show, and I told Chad this I do this show really to try to help people because Over the 33 years that I've worked one-on-one with people, I said to myself, you know, I'm just like doing one person at a time. This is kind of slow. This is, you know, with media or with a podcast or a radio show or a TV show or, you know, anything or, you know, anything, I'd rather spread my message faster and farther. And that's why I do this show, because I feel like I'm lucky to like have access to people like you, and I want to spread the word. So, Chad, but that's cool, yeah, the T&E thing. That's,
Very.
Yeah. All right, now let's talk about this. So now in the book, you say that, well, obviously, and I said this in the open, most people associate acid reflux with heartburn and indigestion.
Correct.
That is certainly how, before I read your books, I thought about it, because the plop, plop, fizz, fizz, they don't even have that commercial anymore.
No, it was an iconic commercial.
Okay.
The plop, plop, fizz, fizz Alka-Seltzer commercial, where you had a very heavy, overweight gentleman, probably 50s, 60s, sitting on the edge of the bed, holding his belly, saying, I can't believe I ate the whole thing, right?
Why did that?
Kept repeating that.
Why did that commercial go away? Because it was...
Well, as every fabulous commercial has its run, it was an iconic commercial, and it struck. And why did it struck? Because we're in a country where 50, 60 million people, or 20% of the population, you know, can have this symptom. So people were recognizing it. It's what happened.
As you point out in the book, the problem with that is that you say the most common symptoms of acid reflux, I said this in the open, let me say it again: hoarseness, abdominal bloating, a nagging cough, a consistent sore throat that kind of comes out of the blue, yes?
Yes.
Postnasal drip, the feeling of a lump in the back of your throat, allergies, shortness of breath. What about
frequent throat clearing. So what you've touched upon is very important. So there are two types of reflux. This is the simplest way to think of it. What the plop, plop, fizz, fizz is stuff coming up from the stomach, the actual reflux of acid.
Okay. I've never had it, so I have to think about it.
Or stomach contents. But there's another type of reflux, which I call throat burn reflux.
You coined that term.
Yes.
Okay.
There's heartburn, and then there's throat burn. Throat burn has to do not necessarily with things coming up, but what you're putting in your mouth that could be acidic. And I could explain exactly what that means. Technically less than pH 4, which means something extremely acidic.
Yeah, and we're going to get into pH.
We can get into that. And acidic things, as they go through your mouth and pass through your sinuses, your middle ear spaces, your vocal cords, your lungs, your esophagus, actually can cause a body-wide inflammatory response. And that's where all these other symptoms come in. And that's what people don't associate with acidity at all. But hopefully, after reading the Acid Watcher Diet and listening to your shows, that will change.
Now, do you want to tell us about the role about pepsin, or do you want to tell us what happened to you?
Well, let's start with what happened to me.
The reason, Chad, now this is, I found it to be profound, was because you at the time, let me see, I have it in my notes. You were an ear, nose, and throat physician and surgeon specializing in swallowing disorders. So you had been to medical school, graduated from medical school, done your internship, done your residency, and you were a practicing, I mean, like you were...
I was director of head and neck surgery at Columbia University Medical Center.
Now, that's important to know, because if your story happened to me or Chad, it would be less impressive, because what did Chad and I don't, you know, like what do you get? You know, I don't know this stuff. Chad, you know, Chad's not a medical professional, but because it happened to you, that's what I like about this story. Go.
So
1996.
It was the mid-90s. In the middle of the night, I suddenly woke up choking. I actually jumped up from bed. I sat up suddenly, and I couldn't move air. I couldn't breathe. It's a lot of my patients describe it as, one of my patients called it a jump up. They wake up in the middle of the night not being able to move air. It's a very scary feeling. I didn't know what was going on.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you think your body woke you up because it was deprived of oxygen, and you just...
It's like suddenly someone choking you in the middle of the night. Imagine waking up like that.
Okay.
It's frightening. And it took me a few seconds to, it seems like an eternity, of course, but it took me a few seconds to realize if I just closed my lips and sniffed, I would break the spasm. And that's what you do when suddenly you're not moving air. Instead of trying to open your mouth and
you go in,
you close your lips and sniff like you're smelling a rose, like you're smelling your great cooking.
Okay.
Like you're smelling Chad's great cooking, his great barbecue, perhaps.
How did you know?
But
Yes.
but purse the lips.
You have to close the lips tight and sniff. Sniff. You're smelling something, but you must close the lips. What that does, it tells the brain to open up your vocal cords. Your vocal cords sit on top of your lungs, you see?
Okay.
So when they're shut, you're not moving air. When you sniff, they open.
Okay.
And air moves.
Okay.
So very quickly, I realized, all right, sniff. It broke the spasm. I relaxed. I was like, what the hell
bet your
is
heart. I
going
bet
on?
you almost had a heart attack, right?
Well, I mean, I was shocked. Like, what was
right.
going on?
Heart was racing. I would have. Yeah.
You know, I went to my doctor. Like, I don't know. And ultimately, we found what it was acid reflux. So you have to look at what happened that night. I probably, came home after, say, 10, 12 hours of cancer surgery and reconstructive surgery. I hadn't had anything to eat for 10, 12 hours. I came home, probably ate everything in sight, was exhausted, laid down, and everything came up.
Question. Why, at the time, do you think as a physician, a trained physician, why do you think you didn't understand how damaging that was? Is that not, that concept wasn't taught in,
in those days, it was all plop, plop, fizz, fizz. You say, well, I'm going to eat something spicy. It was like something spicy. I wasn't eating anything spicy. So and I never had heartburn. So I didn't even think about it. And I could tell you that in the mid-'80s, when I was a medical student at Columbia, a very sophisticated forward medical school,
right,
the emphasis on diet and nutrition really wasn't a fundamental part of the curriculum.
I don't think it is now either.
It's changed somewhat, but certainly in the specialties that deal with what we call aerodigestive medicine, which is lungs, gastrointestinal, ear, nose, and throat.
Okay.
Those areas, it may not have been really talked about.
Okay.
And I could tell you, given the new science that we talk about in the Acid Watcher diet, a lot of the science wasn't even known at the time.
I buy that. I buy that.
Well, we know that for certain.
Yeah.
The whole issue, we will segue into pepsin and acidity and body-wide inflammation. I mean, the story about body-wide inflammation, which hopefully we can talk about for a minute or two.
We will. Yeah.
We didn't even know it as of May of last year. So
it's funny.
all new stuff. And this is what we're trying to do is, in a simple way, connect the dots between some science and what your listeners and everyone out there can do on their own to understand a few basics. And once you got the basics, you'll be able to start figuring it out yourself.
Okay, so let's talk basics. Explain the anatomy of the mouth, the esophagus, and the stomach, and how the esophagus works so we can understand the connection between dietary choices and what happened to you.
Right.
What happened to you was really throat burn reflux, correct?
Well,
in
it
retrospect.
was a combination. Clearly, in that particular situation, something came up which hit my vocal cords. Now, I don't know what it was. Is it partially digested food? Hard to say. But, the symptom wasn't heartburn. I wasn't feeling a burning. I felt my airway shut. So technically,
it would have been a blessing if you had felt the burning, because then you would have been, God, I think something's wrong,
Well, I knew something was wrong, and in short order, we began to see what was going on. But a lot of the fundamental work on laryngeal acid injury wasn't even known in the 90s. It didn't start till about 2001. So it was a few years yet. And there was some earlier work that hinted in this area, but the whole concept of food is medicine, food as medicine, is really something that has been taking place in earnest only lately. And that's because the science hadn't caught up with what we were trying to do food-wise today.
And I have to say this, and Chad, but you probably heard, I don't know if Chad's heard me say this before, maybe it was Keith. To be fair, I used to treat my body like a garbage dump. When I was in, I'm thinking high school, college, and I'll be 52 on July 3rd.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you, Chad.
Yes, happy
Okay.
birthday.
So I'll be 52 on July 3rd. So I'm talking high school, college. I'm talking till I was about 38. That's recently. I mean, until I was about 38 years old, when I just right around the time that I started competing at 38. And at 38, I had to go, okay, everything has to be, up until about 38, I thought, as long as I'm not fat, what does it matter? Like, in other words, that was my attitude kind of. And
Right.
up until about 38, hey, as long as I'm not fat, who cares what you eat? Like, who cares? Have a couple diet sodas, have some stuff from the vending machine. Who cares? I'm not fat. That was how stupid. I mean, but
It's not, to be fair, all right, it's not a question of stupid.
Ignorant.
Well, we don't have the education. It's not in place. And
I think I knew better.
well,
I think, yeah.
but on top of that, look at what happens in society as a whole. When you go to a movie, for instance, what do you hear? Have a bowl of carrots? No, we're told to open happiness.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, my favorite of that is when someone dressed in surgical scrubs is holding a tray full of soda, bring it in.
I know. I know.
I love that. So just pour a little battery acid down your throat. See what happens.
I know.
And I could tell you what happens because I could see what happens.
I used to be a diet soda-aholic. Did you ever drink soda?
I used to have one Coke a week, and I stopped on June 3rd, 2010. It was my brother's birthday.
2010, okay.
And that was it. So that was still, right, 2010. It's only 7 years ago.
But I used to live on diet. I used to drink diet soda like it was a water or something. Like, I used to live on diet soda, the diet teas, the Snapple. How do you think I got through grad school? How do you get through grad school without diet soda? You know what I mean? Like, it was ridiculous the way I treated my body.
But the thing is, again, there's a lot we didn't know.
Yeah.
And we've got to talk about pepsin.
Yeah.
Because
Please, because this is where
All right, so pepsin, Pepsin.
Pepsin.
So pepsin is an enzyme normally in the stomach. So just briefly, what's the anatomy? So you have the lips, the tongue, and you follow the tongue down to the top of the vocal cords. The vocal cords sit right above the windpipe, and the windpipe spreads into the lungs, right?
Okay.
So the most narrow part of the airway is where the vocal cords sit. So when the vocal cords are
right
open,
where your Adam's apple is about?
It's just at your Adam's apple. Everyone can feel it.
Okay.
Right? Put your finger in the middle of your neck. You feel that bony
okay.
Bump in the middle. That's roughly the Adam's apple.
Okay.
That's right where the vocal cords are. So they sit at the top of the windpipe. Now, just behind the vocal cords is where the esophagus begins. So the food pipe, which is the esophagus, connecting the throat to the stomach, and the windpipe are actually very, very close together. They're like this, even closer.
Okay.
So miraculously, we don't cough and choke every time we eat, but your parents used to say,
it's going to go down the wrong hole.
Don't talk while you eat.
Yeah.
Right? Why? Because if you're talking while you're eating, you're actually going to have a chance for that food to jump into the airway. So you want to concentrate when you're eating and not talking so that the food goes where it should go, which is behind the airway, down into the esophagus.
Okay.
So that's the anatomy, right? So once you know that, it starts to make some sense. So what happens when food enters the stomach, there's an enzyme called pepsin. Pepsin breaks down protein, but it gets activated in the acidic environment of the stomach.
Got it.
All right? It's normally the enzyme's asleep. It wakes up at very acidic substances or very acidic levels. And what is that number? That number is 4. 4. So neutral is 7. Think of water. This is alkaline water, Evermore, which is 8.8.
Okay.
But typical tap water from most municipalities is around 7. So 7 is neutral. Above 7 is considered alkaline. Below 7 is acidic. But there are levels of acidity. And really, when you get below 4, you maximally activate pepsin.
Okay, so when you get below 4, acidity of 4, you activate pepsin.
Right.
Period.
So people wouldn't think twice about it, but as it turns out, beginning around 2010, a British scientist named Nikki Johnston, she was in the UK. Now she's in Madison, but at the time she was in UK. She showed that pepsin can float out of the stomach and sit in the vocal cords, in the teeth, in the sinuses, in the middle ear spaces.
Oh, may I have a question?
Yes.
So pepsin can float upward,
right,
and just stay there.
Sits like Velcro.
Okay. Okay. So ear, throat, you said
lungs.
Okay.
Anywhere outside the stomach.
Okay, and it just sits there, doing nothing until
hanging out.
Okay.
And then if you eat or drink something less than pH 4, you will activate pepsin, and what you eat is going to start eating you.
The tissue
will start to swell and get inflamed because you're activating pepsin. Now, so what does that mean?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What made the pepsin float up to those areas?
There's a normal amount of reflux that goes on. People reflux 50, 60 times a day routinely. It's normal physiology. Think of it as a sort of a safety valve. When you're eating, you can't have everything staying down. You need to let gases come up and other things come up. So it's part of physiology for pepsin to float. But it's a very, very important concept, because what that means is if pepsin's hanging out and you eat or drink something very acidic, meaning less than pH 4, you're going to turn on pepsin.
Okay. Question. So obviously, based on what you said, I'm hearing you say that, yeah, duh, pepsin is going to float up. But what it sounds like this woman recognized in 2010, that was the prevailing thought that she recognized that no one had thought of, was once it goes there, it just stays. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yes, it's a constant process. It stays, it gets replenished, it gets deactivated depending on what you're eating or drinking. It's just, it's part of the body.
Okay.
But what people didn't realize is that what you eat or drink can turn this on.
Got it.
So that was not something that Dr. Johnson necessarily intended or was able to connect all the dots to at the time. This was like, hey, isn't this interesting? And that dovetailed with studies showing that the vocal cords could get inflamed with acid exposure, but is primarily thought of as acid coming up, refluxing.
Got it.
Not things coming down.
Got it.
So we're still in the plop plop fizz fizz era, but we're slowly about to enter the Y of the throat burn reflux era.
Okay, so in other words, what you're saying is the arrow points both ways.
Correct. It's not only what comes up, it's what goes down.
Okay. And really, truthfully, in most things, was it the chicken or the egg? Does the arrow point this way or that way? In most things that when I've talked to physicians, nothing is just black and white. Oh, it's just, nothing is. Everything's, and that's what I like about this book, because it basically says, okay, it is what it is, but you can do something about it.
Correct.
Like, you can actually do something. You could take charge of your health by yourself. You don't have to suffer. That's what this book basically said to me.
Right. And the thing is, the reason why a little science is important, and not to put people to sleep, but once you understand that pepsin gets activated below pH 4, the logical question is, well, what's less than pH 4? Is this everything on Earth? As it turns out, it's 6 things. I call it the dirty half dozen.
Oh, the dirty half dozen. Okay.
Yes. There's a dirty dozen.
Yes, you do have the
breaking
dirty
it out into half dozen. 6 for the stomach, 6 for the throat.
Got it. Okay.
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 So if we continue walking along the dots of the pepsin story.
Okay.
So pepsin's sitting here, say, on the vocal cords in the sinuses. When you eat or drink one of these dirty half dozen, you will turn on pepsin. So what are these dirty half dozen? Getting right to it.
Let's go.
Sugary soda.
Got it.
Including diet. Bottled iced tea, including diet. And then what I call the 4 under 4, the 4 substances under pH 4, which are generally healthy: citrus, tomato, vinegar, wine. Citrus I define as lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit, pineapple.
Okay. Pineapple, I don't think people understood.
Right. But certainly lemon, lime, orange, grapefruit.
So soda, whether it's diet, regular, even seltzer water.
We'll talk about seltzer separately.
Oh, okay. So, but soda, diet or regular, teas.
Bottled iced tea.
Bottled iced tea, which I lived on in graduate school. Check. Citrus fruits, lemon, orange, grapefruit, and pineapple. Lime. Tomato, which is everywhere. Vinegar and wine. Have your glass of wine every day for health.
Right. Okay. So.
Okay, and that's.
Well, that's so. I mean that's actually everywhere, right? It's not just the throat.
Okay.
Now we happen to see people coming in with, as you said, frequent throat clearing, with hoarseness, with cough. And what you see is the vocal cords are swollen.
Inflamed, okay.
Right. They look like kielbasa sausages. They
Dear
should be,
God. Yeah.
Yes, they should be thin, pearly white, like violin strings.
Okay.
They turn into sausages. Thick.
Okay.
They don't, when vocal cords are thick, what happens? They don't vibrate. When you can't vibrate your vocal cords, your voice gets very hoarse.
Yeah, you sound like Brenza Vaccaro. Right, okay.
You sound hoarse. You don't sound right. And one of the amazing things, and one of the reasons there's so much mythology out there about how to treat these things is, of 350 million Americans, only about 8,000 people are able to actually look at the vocal cords. So you have, right, how many ear, nose, and throat doctors are there? About 8,000.
But they all do. I mean, like, in other words, amongst your profession, they're all fairly
but the point is, you read these things online. Start every day with lemon water, right? Apple cider vinegar is a great natural treatment for reflux disease. It says it because it alkalizes the body. A lot of this stuff is just nonsense. What happens is, and it's not anyone's fault, because the pepsin story is a new story. And when you eat or drink something acidic, it doesn't really matter what happens later on. On the way down, you are causing a lot of inflammation.
On the way down, you're causing the damage.
Correct.
Okay, on the way down.
And it gets a little more interesting. Last year in May, so right before the galleys of the book were due, a paper came out in the Journal of the American Medical Association. It's called JAMA, J-A-M-A.
Yes.
A researcher named Dr. Dunbar showed that the injury from acid reflux, which forever was thought to be a superficial injury, which then, if severe, spread to the deep tissues, was just the opposite. When you have an acid injury, you get a body-wide inflammatory response.
Is it almost like your body is going?
Exactly. You're in a sense searing the body. So it's not a focal or local response. You get a body-wide inflammatory response. And this is new information. A lot of people just said, oh, this is interesting, and skipped over it. But what happens is you get this body-wide response. So what have I found? My patients with Crohn's disease, with irritable bowel, with psoriasis, and I talk about it in the book, when they stay away from the dirty half dozen, their inflammation goes down everywhere.
Soda, bottled tea, all citrus fruits, lime, lemon, orange, grapefruit, pineapple, tomato, vinegar, and wine.
Right.
Okay, now you didn't mention coffee.
Right. I'll talk about coffee. I'll talk about chocolate. But we're in the throat reflux, the throat burn reflux issue, and those things cause a body-wide inflammatory response. So right now, there's a whole movement in sinus disease to treat sinus disease, not always with antibiotics and steroids, but to alter people's diets, to stay away from processed food, processed carbs, because they're very inflammatory. So this is how we're moving to treating a lot of diseases that affect all of us with food, not medicine.
So what you're saying is, okay, so that paper came out before, right when the final.
We actually held off our galleys and adjusted till because I noticed this, but I didn't it was a theory. Now it's proven. There is the science behind it, and we're able to include it there.
Okay. Do you want to touch on acute inflammation versus chronic to explain,
we can get to that. But what you brought up a good point about coffee and chocolate.
Well, yeah, because what happened was you have a play on the Dirty Dozen from the Environmental Working Group. I've talked about this. I've written about it in my newsletter.
Right.
Yeah, the Environmental Working Group, they have the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. As a play on that, you have your Dirty Dozen, and they're absolutely off limits for the first 28 days because this is the 28 days is considered the healing phase in this book.
Right.
And I kind of would like to know where you stand.
Okay, so we talked about the throat side, and I explained the science. So there's the stomach side, right? The traditional plop, flop, fizz, fizz approach.
Okay.
So what is that? Most people worry about a muscle at the bottom of the esophagus. Think of the esophagus using the sausage motif as a sausage with, tied up on either end. The top end by the airway and the bottom end at the stomach.
I know what the bottom's called.
What's it called?
The lower esophageal sphincter.
Right. So the LES, lower esophageal.
I read the book because I read the book. Yeah.
And we have some pictures.
Yeah. Yes.
So what loosens that muscle?
Oh dear God. Yeah.
Right. So that's the other side of the dirty half dozen. So that's caffeine, chocolate, alcohol, mint,
yes,
raw onion, raw garlic.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't say coffee. You said caffeine.
Right.
May I ask you, because I'm a little high strung, so I don't have caffeine. No, don't tell Chad. Chad's not even paying attention. I'm a little tightly wound, so I don't have caffeine.
Okay.
So I drink an organic Swiss water decaffeinated coffee. Is that okay?
Yeah. So let's explain. What's the story with those 6? Of the 6, coffee, chocolate, alcohol, mint, raw onion, raw garlic. Coffee and chocolate, or caffeine and chocolate, what they do, they don't only loosen, they also increase acid production by the stomach.
Okay.
So not only are you deactivating the protective barrier, you're jacking up acid production.
Okay, so the lower esophageal sphincter, we can think
tight.
of it as the door.
Right,
okay?
It's tight. But
and
you can loosen it.
Yeah.
And the substances that loosen it are those dirty half dozen down here. And you put asterisk by coffee and chocolate because there's a chemical in those two. It's called methylxanthine, if you want to get technical. But there's that chemical. What does it do? It loosens and increases acid.
Okay.
So when coffee and chocolate in and of themselves are not acidic. They're above pH 5, close to 6.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay.
So when people say low acid coffee, what are you talking about? The issue with coffee is not its acidity. It loosens the lower esophageal muscle and it increases acid production. So it works on a different side.
And the chemical is
methylxanthine.
Methylxanthine. Okay.
If that's the chemical. So, and that's what's in chocolate. That's what's in coffee. And so if you do have heartburn as a symptom, clearly you want to stay away from things that loosen that muscle and bring acid up. But as we've discussed, a lot of people don't even have those symptoms. So certainly for the first 28 days, you want to take away that dirty dozen, the 6 and the 6, the dirty dozen, let the body heal. And then depending on whether you've examined the esophagus, so you know the playing field, you could reintroduce a cup of coffee, a square of chocolate, cooked onion and garlic.
Okay.
So it's not as draconian a diet as one may think. And really, you can neutralize a lot of acidic foods and beverages in smoothies and in certain sauces and things like that, and we can talk about that.
Okay.
So I have people coming and says, I'd rather die than not have a glass of wine. Well, okay. As long as you don't have a potentially precancerous condition, so we need to know if you do or not, then we can make adjustments. So it's really about cooling off the body, healing the body in the healing phase, those 28 days that we described.
Okay.
And then knowing what's going on in the body, then making adjustments subsequently.
Well, about my question about decaffeinated versus, so it's not, I'm trying to understand, is it the coffee, the substance, or is it because again, I have a Swiss water organic decaffeinated coffee could that possibly not be processed with the chemical that you? I mean,
well, decaf is up to 6 or 7% calf, right?
Okay.
There's a definition, an FDA definition of decaffeinated. Decaf isn't zero calf. There's a little.
Got it.
So again, I'm not too concerned about that. If people say, look, if I don't have my cup of coffee, I'm not going to survive, have your cup of coffee. I don't think it's that big a deal. I'm much more concerned about the inflammatory things coming down, what you're eating that's very, very acidic.
Okay.
Things like coffee, chocolate, that all depends on what your symptoms are. If you have a lot of heartburn, I'll tell you, if you loosen and bring, right?
Okay.
So that's why symptoms are so important. When people come in, I want to know, tell me what's bothering you. If you tell me what's bothering you, we have a fighting chance to help you.
And you have a checklist in the book too.
Yes, yeah. I mean there are a lot of things that we ask. We want people to have a heads up about, so that they know if you're having these types of symptoms, don't sit on it. Speak to your doctor, discuss it, have a discussion of the treatment options.
Now, I mentioned in the top of the show in the open that the worst thing that can happen, because you say this in the book, the worst thing that can happen is that if acid reflux goes undiagnosed and untreated, it can turn into, God forbid, esophageal cancer.
Right.
Which you say in the book has had a 650-fold increase since the 1970s.
Correct.
And is likely going to replace colon cancer as the second most common cancer in the United States.
If we don't do something about it.
Yeah, and you also said, this was in another paper that you had written that I held on to, that it's the fastest growing cancer in the United States and Europe.
Yes.
What the hell? I mean, since the 70s. So talk about, you trace this alarming rise to 3 issues.
Right. It's we discuss it in the book. It's essentially a legislative and a food industry series of changes that happened in the mid-70s. And if you look at a graph on this side of incidence and this side of years, beginning in the mid-70s, esophageal cancer started to grow, and it outstripped almost every other cancer that was flat or even down.
Okay.
So you have to look at what happened in the mid-70s, right? Yeah. So the FDA, in wanting to prevent food poisoning, said all foods in a can or a bottle need to be acidified.
Okay.
So let me give you one example. A banana.
Okay.
Right? A banana has a pH of around 6, so almost neutral. Baby banana food in a jar has a pH of 4.
Oh, God.
It's 100 times more acidic than a regular banana. Why? Look at the ingredients. It'll say, not always, but often, citric acid, ascorbic acid.
Okay, I got you.
And so you're acidifying to prevent food poisoning. So the idea is noble, but you've overshot a little bit. So almost every food in a can or a bottle by law had to be more acidic. So that's one thing that happened, all in the mid-70s. Another thing happened. In the mid-70s, soda, we vilified soda earlier.
We should.
Surpassed caffeine as the most commonly consumed coffee as the most commonly consumed beverage that Americans consume.
I believe it.
And we've never looked back. And again, this seeps into our social world. There's a show called American Idol, a hugely popular show. If you look at some of the early promos, right? What did the contestants have on their tabletop? A bowl of carrots?
No. Okay. They had a glass, and I'm not going to say the name, but it started with a C, and it ended with an E, and it had O and K in the between.
Well, the issue was, and this is the irony, so a substance that can actually inflame the vocal cords is sponsoring a show about voices. I say it's like the tobacco companies sponsoring the Olympics.
Oy vey. Okay, yeah, we're...
So we have, so that's one
and
legislation.
I jumped on the bandwagon. I mean, to be fair, I had my first diet soda when I was I was born in 65. When I was 70 in 1975, my mother drank Tab.
Right.
Do you remember Tab?
Yes.
and I drank Tab because you remember all this?
Of course. And listen, it's not last year I diagnosed Barrett, Barrett, Barrett esophagus.
Mm-hmm.
That's a potentially, it's not cancer, a potentially pre-malignant lesion of the esophagus in 9 men and women under the age of 30.
So the millennials. So
can you imagine telling a 24-year-old that they have esophageal precancer when they came in for horses? They think you're crazy. But when you get a history, you see that they're drinking some very, very acidic beverages. And look, it's not the only thing that's causing it. There are other factors. We don't know all the cofactors,
mm-hmm.
right? But it tells us that inflammation is a bad actor and can be devastating to the body. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
We go into a lot of technical descriptions about free radicals and things like that in the book. Not too much, because
mm-hmm.
we don't want to inundate, and we don't want to lose sight of what we're trying to do, which is
change our habits.
Get the inflammation down, and then finally, the high fructose corn syrup story. So
that one pisses me off. No, because
why does that piss you off?
It all pisses me off. But because my whole career is I've worked with obese people who have type 2 diabetes and such, and they're doing their best. I mean, people don't, if you don't tell them, they don't know. They think it's safe. They're doing the best they can. They don't. No one labels anything this is dangerous. High fructose corn syrup is in everything.
Well, so what is it? So beginning again in the 70s, late 70s, sugar, which used to be from sugar cane or beet,
yeah,
right, was changed because of droughts and other natural disasters. It became too expensive. So the food industry was able to be very creative and found that using corn, you can change corn and get a sugar out of it called high fructose corn syrup.
Okay.
The issue with high fructose corn syrup is that it's very inflammatory. It loosens the lower esophageal muscle, right? Certain ways to make it can be acidic as well. That's a little controversial, but we do know that it's inflammatory. We do know that it loosens the protective barrier between the acidic stomach and the non-acidic esophagus and the rest of the body up here. So it is in a lot of substances. I mean, a perfect example is barbecue sauce and ketchups. I mean, not all of them, but when you go to the store and you say, "Oh, we're in the summer, right? It's summer season. Mm-hmm. It's barbecue season." People will, put the barbecue sauce. Look at the ingredients. The second ingredient in so many barbecue mm-hmm. sauces is high fructose corn syrup. So it's getting out there, but then they're pseudonyms for high fructose corn syrup. They're using other terms.
Oh, because now they know that we're onto that. Yeah.
So it's very tricky. Look, if you have no choice, you have no choice. But if you have choices, if you can look at ingredients.
What are some of the pseudonyms? Just so
they're all kinds. I can't go through all of it, okay. But and there are sites when you Google high fructose corn syrup,
okay,
the pseudonyms start to come up,
okay.
And the point is, look at the ingredients. I mean, we don't expect everyone to have a science background or be comfortable with the science, but start to look at the ingredients. That's all. And that's a bit of a pain because it's in very tiny lettering and it's hard to understand. That's okay, but look for certain things. And because of technology today, if there's an ingredient, you take a picture of it and you look it up later.
Right.
We're trying, right? It's all this. It comes back to the same thing. We need to educate.
Oh yeah, I mean,
when you bring in your personal story, it resonates because we didn't know. All right, whether you're professional or not,
yeah.
We just didn't know. So we're in the getting to know and getting to read. And as we see these things, you can decide whether or not you want to make some changes in your diet and lifestyle.
Do you ever think do you ever think seriously that like maybe a bunch of you doctors can there be any pressure on the FDA to get high fructose corn syrup? Because we're also at least in this country, we're all fat. We all have diabetes. I've got little children that are obese. Like can't the medical community maybe put pressure on? can't we get rid of these things that are killing us? Like, we're killing ourselves. We're really killing ourselves. We're just committing slow suicide.
Well, I mean, let's dance this to tobacco for a second. So we've known for years that tobacco is responsible for a whole host of cancers.
And acid reflux. I mean,
yes, it's related to acid reflux.
Because you say in the book, 100% of smokers have acid damage.
Correct.
Chad, did you hear that? I don't think Chad's listening. Chad, did you hear that? I want you.
He went out to get a bowl of carrots. Come on.
Check it out, Chad. He says in the book, 100% of smokers have acid damage.
That's amazing. That's an amazing system. Well, I did used to smoke, and I had acid reflux. I quit it about 8 years ago.
Good.
But yeah, it happens.
Hard to quit.
Yeah.
Very hard to quit.
I mean, like, so okay. So tell you, because
So we know tobacco is bad. There's all this data. I mean, as a head and neck cancer surgeon, everyone was smoking at one point. That's how they got the cancer. And look how hard it was. I mean, it's addicting. There are all kinds of the issues are very, very complicated, and I grant that it's not easy to do anything. There's nothing harder. I can tell you as a physician with almost 30 years of experience taking care of patients, there's nothing harder than trying to change diet and lifestyle. What you hear is take a pill, eat what you want. And you know what? I get that. And it's very, very hard to make the change. You transformed yourself in your 30s.
Late 30s, yeah.
Okay, but you think of the discipline that required.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. So what we're trying to do is trying to get people to slowly move into something generally more healthy.
Yeah.
You can't do it in a day. It's a long, slow play. But we have results now. We have 12,000 people on the diet. We see what happens in terms of weight loss. In fact, today I saw a patient who in November had a hemoglobin A1C, which is a blood test which is a measure of your tendency to have adult onset diabetes.
Yeah, it's a 3-month picture. Yeah.
Right. So she was above 6. She started the diet in April, so she came in today 6 weeks later, repeated the blood test. It is now, and she was strict, it's now 5.6.
Thank God, because then she's out of the danger zone.
The doctor was already warming up the oral hypoglycemic agents for her. So cholesterol went from 240 to 160.
Did she lose weight? I'm just curious.
She lost 11 pounds in the 6 weeks.
That's amazing. And if she stays on it, that trend will continue.
Yeah, so it's easy to sustain that. The purpose, of course, is not weight loss. The purpose is to rev metabolism and get rid of the inflammation. And their positive side effects, weight loss is most common among these positive side effects.
Well, and there's no such thing, and I've done this. I mean, this is what I do for a living. There's no over fat, and I hate the word overweight because technically speaking, I think I'm overweight for my height. It's more over fat. It's like too much fat on your body. There's no such thing as having too much fat on your body and not being inflamed. There's no such thing. I mean, I've never seen an obese person. And clinically obese, most people don't understand how, clinically obese is what? A BMI of 30 or above. And I body mass index isn't my favorite, but, inflammation goes hand in hand with obesity. And
I mean, there are a lot of studies connecting obesity to reflux disease, obesity to esophageal cancer.
Yep.
And, again, we don't want to frighten people, and it's not like you're trying to climb Everest here. I mean, I would think of this as incremental change.
Leaning in.
Dipping your toe in the water.
Oh, yeah, so we don't steal someone's book. Yeah. Yeah. Scratch that part. We'll take that out. I wanted to ask you, because you say this in the book, do you want to talk about this, or I'll give you the choice, or do you want to go into a little blurb about chronic versus acute inflammation, or first, would you prefer to say, because you said that being overweight or obese predisposes someone to developing or exacerbating symptoms of GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, and vice versa.
Right.
Now, the relative who I'm referring to is both. She has GERD and she has central adiposity, which means apple-shaped, where normal-looking arms and legs, but dangerously, round, rotund midsection. So how do the two do this?
Well, there's some very good science that connects obesity to reflux disease.
Okay.
Even
and especially, and you said in the book, especially abdominal
right,
adiposity.
right,
Yeah.
and obesity to cancers, including esophageal cancer. Um, it's a little tricky. It's not completely related. We know from the literature on bariatric surgery. Bariatric surgery is a term for surgery that reduces weight by using procedures to alter the anatomy of the stomach.
Gastric bypass, sleeve gastrectomy, etc.
There are all kinds of procedures, but what do we know? Now that we have long-term data, the life expectancy of the people who underwent bariatric surgery improves dramatically.
Thank God.
But these are surgical procedures with considerable risks. So you always want to say, is there a food alternative? Is there a diet and lifestyle alternative? And it's very easy to get cynical and say, they'll never lose weight, they'll never change diet, they'll never change lifestyle. So what we're trying to do in the Acid Watcher diet is give an approach that's not like climbing Everest. Oh my God. It's something that really almost anyone can do.
Yeah.
And if we focus on the dirty half dozen throat version for a moment, if we're asking people, listen, people say to me, I only have a sugary soda twice a week. I say I only pour battery acid down my throat twice a week. So when you frame it that way, that gives a little motivation. There are no health benefits, so lose that. Bottled iced tea, make your own. Because there are no preservatives if you're making your own herbal tea and throwing ice cubes in it.
That's what I do.
And, right. Well, it's not here today, but that's easy enough. And then people question, well, what do I have? What can I have? So as it turns out, watermelon and cucumber have the greatest concentration of natural anti-inflammatory agents. It was always thought that lycopenes, which are a chemical in tomato, which is a very, very powerful natural anti-inflammatory agent, it was thought that's what you need. So urologists tell their patients, for prostate health, eat your tomatoes. Well, as it turns out, watermelon 6-5 over tomato has a greater concentration of lycopenes. So you could take out the tomato, substitute watermelon. Cucumber.
I did not know cucumber,
Yeah, cucumber, it's called lignans, Lignans. Lignans are also a very powerful natural anti-inflammatory agent. You can combine them. I take a cup of watermelon, half a cucumber sliced up, put it in the blender, press play for 30 seconds, maybe an ice cube so it's cold, and it's a very tasty beverage, anti-inflammatory beverage to start your day. I call it food steroids.
Yeah. And if you don't want, you could even add some water to it, and just kind of cut the concentration of.
You can
and
play
make a
with
picture
it
of it.
to your taste. It doesn't matter, but these are very, very quick and easy ways to take your beverages and start your day with an anti-inflammatory blast as opposed to an inflammatory blast.
May I ask a question about tomatoes while we're on the subject?
Yes.
So yes, in the popular literature, tomatoes are best source of lycopenes. What about, do they become more or less acidic when they are cooked? Because
that varies. Almost no matter what you do, tomatoes are acidic. But wait. You can neutralize the acidity of tomato, and we talk about it in the book. We call it a gazpacho. We're in the summer. You know what gazpacho is, right?
I'm Latino and Sicilian, so yeah.
Okay, so we have a gazpacho, but instead of spelling it Gaspa, it's GAW for Acid Watcher Spacho.
Oh, I love it.
Okay,
trademark. Okay.
So what is that? We take tomatoes and puree them with cucumber. It neutralizes the acidity. So we have a recipe in there. It's a gazpacho, that you've taken the tomato and it's delicious.
Okay, so in other words, you take an acid food and you take an alkaline and it kind of brings it down.
It gets rid of the acidity.
And I wanted to say this for people who are going, well, how the hell am I supposed to know? You have, and I counted, you have about 5 or 6 pages of where you list the food and the alkalinity or acid. Basically it's a listing of suggested foods.
Right.
For people who don't necessarily want to follow your recipes, a big chunk of this book, for people who like to try new recipes and such, a big chunk of this book has brilliant recipes. Did you do that by yourself?
So I worked with chefs, health and wellness experts, dietitians, speech therapists from all over the world.
Gotcha, because it's chock full of recipes. But what you also have for people who are more like me, who I'm not really a recipe person, I'll eat an avocado, I'll eat a cucumber.
That's good.
I do what I do. It's not very interesting. But you have about 5 pages that I counted of foods that are suggested, like, hey, so it's not. So you do take a couple things away from us, but you also say, but look at all this that you can have. And it's pages and pages. So you can literally take pictures of this, take it to the store as a grocery list. There's a lot you can eat.
Well, and
it lists, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it lists the pH.
Correct.
So people don't have to go, how do I know? Because otherwise I'd be thinking that. I'd be thinking, how the hell am I supposed to know what the pH of something is?
Right. So we certainly have lists. And the other thing we've done is we've made the book live on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay.
If people go to at Dr. Aviv on Instagram, it's DOCTORAVIV. Almost every morning I'm posting an Acid Watcher safe, either smoothie, juice, meal, workout, something related to health and wellness. So we go beyond the Acid Watcher diet as described in detail and take the concepts and neutralize. So very healthy things like strawberries, raspberries, blackberries. You can neutralize their acidity. They're less than pH 4 by throwing them into a blender with what I call CARS, C-A-R-S. CARS stands for coconut, almond, rice, or soy milk.
Oh, my God. Okay, right? I love this. Okay.
So it's one of the 4.
Okay, coconut.
You throw it in there, and you'll neutralize the acidity of these very healthy but acidic foods, but keep their anti-inflammatory properties.
Okay, so this is what you just said, and you do talk about this in, all right, so I want to say this, and then I want to say another thing about the 28-day healing phase. So CARS, coconut milk, almond milk, rice milk, or soy milk.
Correct.
One of these will neutralize the acidity of berries if, in fact, you want to make a smoothie or this, that, or the other.
Or it doesn't even have to be berries. Let's say I've even found, I didn't put this in the book, that you could take a clementine.
Which is an orange.
Or an orange.
Okay.
It's an orange, very acidic. Throw it in your blender for the maintenance phase. So the way it works is we have healing phase. You want to stay above pH 5. That's just the first 28 days. And then the maintenance phase, which is really the lifelong commitment, you're above pH 4. So while it's only one number, it's 10 times.
Can it be at pH 4? Or
4 or above.
Okay. Because that opens up a lot.
Right. Yeah, it opens up almost everything except for the dirty half dozen, really. And now we're saying you can neutralize tomato, right? You can neutralize an orange. You can't. It's hard to neutralize wine. Vinegar, a little tricky, but.
Okay, so this is where, before I forget my question, during the healing phase, which again, it's called the 28-day, a 28-day reflux prevention and healing program. During the first 28 days, are you allowed to neutralize things?
Absolutely.
You are.
But you want the neutralization to bring you above 5. So
that's where it gets weird. Then you have to,
Yeah, so, but you know what? I still feel that you can neutralize most of these foods. It depends. When you're using something very alkaline like almond milk, which is above pH 8, and you throw your berries in there, you're going to be above 5.
I have a question. Why did you pick, because you touch on this in the book, you have patients that go, I've done this for 14 days and I feel better. Do I have to do 28? You're very adamant that no matter how you feel, because you say that within 7-10 days, you probably are going to feel a lot better.
Not everyone, but a lot of people start to feel better.
But you say you have to stick it out for 28 days. And am I correct that you say that because although you may feel better, you're talking about real internal healing of the tissue?
To the extent that we could see these things, we know that you want to heal for about a month.
Okay, that's why you
want to cool off the body, and then you could shift to a less draconian, a little easier way to eat and to lifestyle.
And that's maintenance.
That's what we call the maintenance phase. Exactly.
And in an ideal world, you'd like people to live on the maintenance phase. That's in an ideal world.
If you can. Now look, we always fall off the wagon. I fall off the wagon.
Do you?
Well, of course. You know, there's celebrations and parties, and you're when my patients travel, they're going to Italy. What? You're not going to have the local fare? Of course.
Oh, can I say something? Can I bust you? Can I? Because I've busted myself. And you're coming off of this looking real good, and right? No, Chad's not there. Where did Chad go? Anyway, one night, Chad, are you there? Okay, so one night.
Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay, so one night, unless I'm hallucinating, which could be happening, but
that was my fault if you were.
No, but I think I'm pretty spot on. I saw you, because I was checking my mail. You walked into the lobby. You were holding you'd gotten a pizza. You were
right. Well, I have people at home.
Right. Oh, you didn't have a slice of pizza, but you tell me you didn't.
So this is what I fantasize about.
Okay.
I fantasize about a pepperoni pizza.
Well, you had your fantasy because I bet that's
the thing is though, I have to be very careful with tomato.
Okay.
Personally.
Okay.
What happens with tomato is that I feel a little nauseated.
Almost immediate. Oh.
No, I mean it takes about an hour or two, but then I am not feeling well GI wise for about 2 days.
Oh God.
Now, so I didn't always have that because I was very inflamed. So as I've stayed away, my body's exquisitely sensitive to tomato. That's just the way it is. Now, I've tried all the recipes. When I neutralize, I don't have a problem. But
how do you neutralize tomato? How do you neutralize?
So there are two ways. Cucumber is one.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
The second is carrot.
Really?
Now, most chefs know this. Carrot's relatively alkaline. If you puree tomato with carrot, you get the sweetness of the carrot without the high fructose corn syrup.
Okay.
Right? So you get the sweetness of the carrot, and you've neutralized a lot of the acidity of tomato. We don't talk about it in the Acid Watcher diet, but we've subsequently spoken to a lot of chefs. A lot of chefs, when they make, say, a meat sauce, a bolognese, they will add a lot of carrot to neutralize the acidity of tomato. So when I say falling off the wagon, for me, I'm thinking it would be more like a processed dessert.
I got you.
You know, more than because that doesn't hurt me. Whereas I'm uncomfortable with tomato.
I know what I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I totally understand what you're saying because there are things that I can do to fall off the wagon where I'm not suffering for 3 days, and there are things that I can do where
and that's where the problem is.
The 5 minutes. Well, that's why I ultimately turned my health around because I got to an age where I said, you know what, my priority is feeling great, not just looking good. Like I got old. You actually get to an age in life, right, where you want to feel well and you want to feel fantastic, and you don't feel like putting up with.
Right. Well, I mean, if the discomfort's that bad,
yeah,
it's like how many times do kids eat sand? Usually, it's the first time and the last time.
Right.
So, in a sense, this is an extension of that. If something is making you feel uncomfortable, as much as you like it going down, very quickly you're feeling not great, so you tend to stay away from it. And you know what? There's so many foods out there. If we're talking about the 4 under 4 foods versus tens of thousands of other options, I think we're okay.
Chad,
yeah.
Can we run just a teeny tiny bit over?
Yeah, we're here.
Let's just run a teeny tiny bit over. We're almost out of time, but what I want to do with you is you have a chapter in the book that focuses on habits that you've observed in most sufferers of acid damage. And you say that these habits generate, and let's review. Okay, obviously, so just a quick comment on each of them. So you say quit all smoking, cigarettes, cigars, pot, because you said 100% of smokers have acid reflux.
Right. And another thing most people don't realize is that a joint, marijuana cigarette, is the equivalent of almost a pack of cigarettes in terms of its inflammatory effect on the lungs.
I did not know that.
It's published in the literature, good science. It's probably more like 13 or 14. I'd say, so you say a pack and 3/4.
Okay.
I mean, 3/4 of a pack. So it's inflammatory. People don't realize just because it's legal doesn't mean it's good for you.
What about vaping?
Vaping, and there have been studies again and published in multiple respected medical journals. Vaping is just as inflammatory. I mean, you're taking a potential carcinogen and you're putting it to the far reaches of your lung. So all smokables have a problem.
May I say this, though, because you touched on this in the book. Because of some of the stuff I've seen, I am in favor of medical marijuana. I mean, if a kid can keep from having seizures, or
I'm not talking to you. That's an edible. You don't have to smoke it. There's a big difference between an edible.
So you're saying, like, I'm sorry to jump in here, but this is really interesting. So you're saying the combustion part of smoking,
right?
The burning up, that's the stuff that's really bad for you.
But I thought vaping was, so vaping's combustible too.
Of course. And there are numerous studies on this. The edibles, the gummy bears, those types of things.
Okay, so there are ways.
Fine. So if you need to get your cannabis in there so that
for medical reasons,
so you can alleviate nausea, so that whatever it is, seizure, whatever the medical indications are, you don't have to smoke it.
Okay, so
you can eat it.
So there are ways of advocating for medical marijuana, but
it's completely different.
Okay.
Completely different.
Okay.
I'm talking about, as Chad just mentioned, combustion, vaporizing something, which goes into your lungs, is very different than something that you eat, goes into your stomach and has that effect. Completely different.
Wow.
Completely different. And you'll get the medicinal effects that you desire. But some people say, they say, oh, it's medicinal. Well, they're getting high. And then if you want to talk about the nausea thing, as it turns out, if you smoke or consume too much cannabis, you get something called Cannabis Hyperemesis syndrome.
Oh, that's nausea. Hyperemesis gravidarum is morning sickness for women.
Here, after, and everyone's a little different, maybe 5-6 joints, you start vomiting.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it actually has a different effect on the brain. It's at higher levels. People don't realize it.
I've never smoked pot in my life. I feel like I should I don't mean, wait. Edit. I should not smoke pot. I'm saying I've never done it. And I feel like everybody talks about it. I've never smoked. I'm
not a smoker. That's not my thing. And look, people do what they need to do. But again, just understand the risks. You can accept the risk.
All right, but you say, because again, you say.
So I'm not a fan.
100% of smokers have acid reflux disease. All right.
Correct.
You say eliminate wine, especially white wine.
Right.
And limit other alcohol intake. Now, we're talking during the healing phase now.
Right.
Okay.
So during the healing phase, you want to get rid of inflammation, right? This is all, what is this book about? It's about inflammation, how to prevent inflammation, how to treat inflammation when it's happening. Alcohol is inflammatory. Now, wine and beer are very acidic. White wine is pH 3.3. So now we're getting towards the sugary soda pHs, the very, very acidic substances. People say, I'd rather die than not have wine. Okay. The thing is, though, you're coming in because you're symptomatic. You're not sitting there without a problem. You're coughing, your throat clearing, your hoarse, whatever it is. If wine's your nightly wine, lay off your nightly wine for 28 days. Let the body heal. Let's find out what's going on. Once we know what's going on, we can sit and talk about things. But to go blindly, look, I have patients who have Bariatric esophagus who want to negotiate with me how much wine to have. You have a precancerous condition. What can I tell you?
I get it. I don't drink wine either, so I don't do anything. No, seriously, I need to rethink my life. Okay, number 3 is reduce caffeine consumption, coffee, tea, chocolate, and eliminate carbonated drinks. And you wanted to possibly say a word about seltzer water?
Yeah, so the issue with seltzer, plain seltzer, not flavored. Flavored seltzer, just like soda, it's acidic.
Okay.
But the issue is a mechanical thing with the bubbles.
Okay.
And this is why I urge singers and professional voice users to stay away from carbonation. Because what happens with carbonation? The bubbles fill the stomach, they distend the stomach,
yes,
and they push the contents up. So you have these gas bubbles that are acidic exploding over your airway. Think of the Hindenburg.
Okay.
So that's why. So look, some people say, I can't live without carbonation. Then you know what? Put watermelon chunks in your club soda or slices of cucumber, so at least you have an anti-inflammatory
and let it
substance.
sit overnight. Let it,
Well, even if you want to drink it right away, that's fine. At least you're having an anti-inflammatory blast to go along with your homemade carbonated beverage.
Okay. I mean, I don't do carbonated beverages. I really got to change. I really don't do much.
Yeah, you're like really square.
No, I really don't.
Like on the square meter, you're extremely square.
I don't do a lot. Okay, anyway. Okay, well, so stop relying on processed foods. That's kind of a duh, but harder than people, you know what I'm saying?
It's very tough. But and so this, I just want to make a comment about the fact that 1% of the population has celiac disease, yet 40, that's it. 40% of all new food products are gluten-free. So that's quite a disconnect. 1% versus 40%. So what do we say?
The buzz, yeah.
Well, so what happens? Why do people feel so darn good when they eliminate gluten? What they're eliminating is processed carbs. When you eliminate processed carbs, you're eliminating very acidic, inflammatory foods. So, of course, you're going to feel better. Mm-hmm. But then you start going off into areas where you're missing grains. So if you don't have the disease, you should really have, and there are ways to do it, healthy grains.
Healthy grains. All right, but stop relying on processed foods.
Processed
and we recently did a show about diabetes, and I was saying how, like, if you go into my house and open up the cupboards in the refrigerator, there are almost no packages. They're like cucumbers, organic chicken. I mean, it's as boring as the rest of my life.
You call it boring. The thing is, I call it exciting, because what I'm doing every morning is I'm sitting there in my Calvins taking pictures of different fruits and vegetables, and we putting in a blender and creating the smoothie of the day or the juice of the day. And it's actually, we've turned the kitchen into a food lab. And
it's boring, but I feel great. I feel well.
The boring thing, I don't know. I find what you're doing exciting.
Oh, thank you, doctor. Would you go so far as to say I'm your favorite neighbor in the building?
Without a doubt.
Did you hear that, Chad?
That was very sweet.
That was very sweet. I love you so much, doctor. Okay, now this is a big one. Listen to this. Chad, listen to this, all right? Don't eat 3 hours before going to bed. And may I add something to that? Really, you mean before lying down.
Lying down, correct. You want to stay upright for 3 to 4 hours before you lie down.
I know so many people who break that rule.
Well, it's probably the toughest thing. So why do we say 3 to 4 hours? Because for most people, it takes the stomach 3 to 4 hours to empty. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So look, you have a long day. You're doing your interviews to 8:39 at night. Maybe get a workout in. You finally get home. You're hungry. You have something
to eat. It's 11 o'clock.
And then you're like, you lie down and the stuff comes. I'm not saying you. That's
right. I got it.
That's what happens. It's definitely the single toughest thing to do. And when you think about it, let's say you want to go to a show. It starts at 7 or 8. So you're working until 6 o'clock. When are you going to eat?
Right.
So you're trying to eat something on the way. You actually have to plan your life a little. But the rewards are great. And the rewards are fairly quick. So these are little steps we take to start the healing in your body.
And I told you about this. Chad, this is a true story. I have a friend who's in anesthesia right now. He's a Broadway performer, pretty high up Broadway performer. And he would eat and go to bed. Broadway performer, when does he get home? Do you understand?
Right.
Like,
no,
Broadway
performer, very tough.
Eat and go to bed, eat and go to bed. And he was having throat issues. And this was before I knew you. It was before I had even moved into the building that this whole thing was happening. Now he's in anesthesia. But at the time, I sent him to my ENT, who I regarded as, and the ENT at the time, this was back in the early 2000s, said, "You're not going to believe this, but I think because you're lying down right after you eat dinner, I think," and my friend didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to hear it, so he decided not to hear it. Because what I've learned, and this as a physician, I know this as a trainer, people hear what they want to hear.
Right.
And he didn't want to hear it, but this is so true. And I will say I am good about this, and hence emails at 3 a.m. Do you understand me? Because I'm good about that. All right, letter F is reduce stress. The direct relationship of stress to GERD. And acid.
So what happens is when you're stressed, the body releases glucocorticoids or natural steroids.
Mm-hmm.
And when steroids get released, acid production in the stomach increases. So that's the correlation. When people say, "I think it's stress," you bet it's stress.
Right.
So what's the prescription? A week in the Bahamas?
You know what I've had to learn how to do since my life didn't change? I had to learn to handle what was going on.
Listen, that's your area of expertise. That's your bullseye. You connect the soul to the mind, to the mind, to the body. And, it's the Tamari way to reduce stress. We talk about some stress reduction techniques in the Acid Watcher diet, but everyone has their own thing. And that's good for people to explore on their own.
Exactly. Improve sleep patterns.
Right. So, there's a magic number for sleep. It varies from individual to individual. You want to get 5 to 6 if you can. That, again, relates to glucocorticoid release and steroid production and acid production.
And finally, and this is why I love you, make exercise a part of your life.
Right. Now, that's however you do it, whether it's walking the dog, whether it's going to the park, walking around, whether it's actually doing a vigorous Terra Marie type exercise routine, whatever it is, get your body moving.
Get your body moving more. I love you. And this is the book. And I want to thank Dr. Jonathan Aviv for a tremendous show. Check out this book. I'm telling you, I read it cover to cover. And it's the kind of book, I got to tell you, though, although I read it cover to cover, it's the kind of book that I would, if I don't have the symptoms, thank God, but it's more of a reference book. It's kind of book you want to keep on hand, in my humble opinion. It's called The Acid Watcher Diet, a 28-day reflux prevention and healing program. You can pick up a copy at Barnes & Noble and anywhere books are sold, of course, on Amazon.com. And check out his website, acidwatcher.com, acidwatcher.com. And I imagine on your website they can pick up your links to social media accounts, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you sit here for 2 seconds. It's time for my Tara Marie's tip. Chad, we have time, yeah? Yeah? Okay, so it's time. This one's a very short and sweet one. Tara Marie's tip segment where I kind of give my take on whatever's happened during the show or talk about whatever the heck I want to talk about because it's my show. This one's short and sweet, and it relates to what we discussed tonight with Dr. Aviv. I want you to consider how you think about the management of your own health. As I said in the opening, health is not the absence of disease, because if it were, you'd be considered healthy if all of your blood work values were in the normal range and you had not yet been diagnosed with a chronic or acute disease. Now, the problem with this medical model is that there are millions of people walking around the planet with acceptable blood work and no diagnosable disease, but they have low energy, they feel like crap, they have aches and pains, they can't fall asleep at night, or they awaken in the middle of the night, their mood is bad. They're alive and they have a pulse, but they're not enjoying life because they don't really feel well. And I've actually been one of those people, so I get it. These are people, I used to be in this camp, who thought, I'm going to do whatever I want and assume that when something breaks, the doctor's going to fix it. Not a great way to live, but I lived that way. This doesn't work, and I can tell you that from personal experience. This new model that I want you to consider is that you, the patient, will partner with your doctor and take responsibility for your own health. And you know, and I know, that with every choice you make, everything, and that's the food you eat, the air you breathe, the products that you use in your home, the products you use on your body, what you drink, when you eat and drink, how you regard sleep, whether or not you choose to smoke or take drugs, whether or not you choose to exercise. All of these things can create or destroy health, and they all reside in that's all your power. The show we did today with Dr. Aviv highlights the fact that food is medicine. And if we regard nutrition and lifestyle as a means by which we can foster and maintain our own health, we can diminish the need for having to take medication to help our bodies do what they should be able to do naturally, because the body wants to heal. The body is empowered to heal. You just have to help it heal. Now, of course, we're not 100% in control of what happens to us. And I don't say this to put blame on myself or to put blame on you or to put blame on anybody. We all have our medical challenges, and sometimes disease can creep in and we have to deal with it. I'm referring to making choices to put yourself in a position of being proactive about your health rather than reactive. Be proactive in the choices you make rather than reacting when there's a problem and then expecting a doctor to fix it. Rather than wait for something to go wrong and then seek medical attention, why not do everything in your power to take care of your body with the intention of staving off disease in the first place? Think about this, okay? Think about this. Think about and consider all the things we've discussed on the show tonight. Make the decision to build habits into your life that encourage optimal health, where you really feel great. And make this a priority, because it's easier to avoid a problem than it is to fix one. And that is my final word. I want to say thank you for everybody for tuning in, Dr. Aviv for being here. I love having you. I hope that you'll join me next time. We're going to do this whole Facebook Live shtick about once a month. Please rate and review Tara Marie Live on iTunes, and be sure to subscribe to Tara Marie Live on your favorite podcast app.
I subscribe.
Oh, God bless you.
Yes.
So you never miss an episode. Hello. You can also subscribe on my website. My website is taramarie.com. That's TARAMARIE.com. While you're there, you can listen to, download episodes. Also, sign up for my mailing list. You'll get my newsletter with my Tara Marie's tips about nutrition and fitness, motivation, getting on the path to health. And each week I'll also post about the show that's dropping that week in your podcast app. And please connect with me on social media. On Facebook, it's Tara Marie Live. And on Twitter, it's at Tara Marie_live. I wish for you a very happy and blessed week. Make better choices today than you did yesterday, and you'll always be moving in the right direction. Thank you so much for joining me today, and peace out. That was good.